Hey guys, make sure you enter the giveaway. All you have to do is be subscribed to the channel, like this video and leave a comment. In this video I'm bringing you a theory in which Jon and Daenerys Targaryen will marry in the final season of Game of Thrones. This theory is backed up with quite a few clues and foreshadows from both the TV show and the book series, so without further ado, let's just jump into it. The marriage of Ice and Fire was expected to already take place in the previous season of Game of Thrones, considering that the potential suitor in Westeros was the main reason Daenerys left her lover Daario Naharis behind in Meereen in the season 6 finale. However, Game of Thrones season 7 did see Ice and Fire come together as Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen finally met and promptly fell in love. Since Dany did not come to Westeros to only conquer it, but also to build a stable order and reunite all those 7 kingdoms, of which most are in an open rebellion against the crown, Jon Snow was and still is the only logical suitor for Dany. Not only that Jon is the only logical option, since as a king Jon is one of the most powerful people in the 7 kingdoms, one of a few men who actually has any authority and respect from his people that will fight beside him to the bitter end, but their pairing would also fulfill an ancient pact between those two houses, a pact that is dating all the way back before Aerys' madness. All the way back to the civil war between the Targaryens, known as the Dance of the Dragons, war in which House Stark supported the claim of a Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen, a pact that was sustained with the condition in which a Targaryen, a royal princess, would marry a Stark. This agreement, known as the Pact of Ice and Fire, was never fulfilled, but it could change in the final season since Daenerys doesn't want only to conquer the 7 kingdoms, but wants to make it a better place, wants to build a stable structure, and marrying Jon Snow would bring her support and control over the kingdom that is large as the other 6 combined. As proven in the season 7 finale, even though the army of the dead is marching to kill the entire living side, proving alliances to people is still of the great importance. In that episode, in the Chamber of the Painting Table, Daenerys and her court discuss logistics. Jon says it will take the Dothraki a fortnight to reach Winterfell, while they can sail with the Unsullied to White Harbor and meet Dothraki on the King's Road. This is when Jorah proposes Daenerys to rather fly to Winterfell, as he points out that the north is not really safe for her. She has many enemies there, and all it takes is one angry man with a crossbow and an idea of becoming a hero by killing the Targaryen conqueror with one well-placed bow. Jon then states that it's her decision, but if they are going to be allies in this war, it's important for the Northerners to see them as one. Jon basically convinces Daenerys that if they are to sail together, it sends a better message since the North will see her as an ally rather than conqueror. If sailing together sends a better message, then wedding would most certainly seal their alliance. Additionally, Jon and Dany have already begun an intimate relationship, although neither one of them is currently aware of their family ties. As we'll remember, in the season 7 finale we saw the two hook up while Bran's voiceover was explaining that they are in fact related. Since Jon and Dany are headed to Winterfell, it is likely that Bran and Sam will reveal the truth about Jon's true heritage early on in the season. Clearly, this revelation of Daenerys being Jon's aunt will come as a huge shock to both of them and will most certainly change their relationship. Even though incestuous pairings have never bothered Targaryens, and some might even say that it will not bother Jon and Daenerys either as they are Targaryens themselves, you're completely wrong. Targaryens did spend over 300 years wedding brother to sister in order to keep their bloodline pure, true. Daenerys' parents, Aerys the Mad King and Rhaella, were siblings, and Daenerys did grow up believing she would marry her brother Viserys, also true, but it simply is not the same. Even though intermarriage is accepted in Westeros and expected for Targaryens, Jon was not raised as a Targaryen and likely will not embrace their family traditions. As proven numerous times, Jon Snow is as honorable as Ned Stark, and in this case, his honor and very stoic sense of right and wrong will most likely prevent him from continuing a relationship with his aunt. Throughout the series, it has been established that first-degree incest outside of the Targaryen family, such as Craster and his daughters, and of course the most popular incest couple, Jaime and Cersei, is considered wrong and immoral. Intermarriage between first cousins, on the other hand, is not considered incest in Westerosi society. The prominent example is that Tywin Lannister married his own cousin Joanna Lannister, mother of all 3 of his children. However, Jon and Dany are not cousins, nor are they siblings, they're nephew and aunt, and therefore many are wondering if they will, upon finding out the truth, still marry each other to seal their alliance. The answer on that question is both yes and no. Yes, there will be the Targaryen marriage in the 5th episode of the final season, but no, they will not marry out of love nor because they want to seal their alliance, they will do it because of their child. I know you might be a bit confused, so let's get a little bit back. No, Jon and Daenerys will not continue their intimate relationship after they find out the truth, which will by the way take place in the very beginning of the final season, but they don't have to because Daenerys already got pregnant in the season 7 finale. It's been highlighted numerous times during this season that Daenerys believes she can no longer have children because of a prophecy that was told to her by Mirri Maz Duur in the season 1 finale. The prophecy tells, when the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, when the seas go dry and the mountains blow in the winds like leaves, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child, then he will return and not before. Despite Daenerys' belief that she cannot have children because of this prophecy, Dany will most definitely be pregnant with Jon's baby next time we see her. The show's next big twist was heavily foreshadowed throughout the previous season. For an example, it was foreshadowed by Jon questioning Daenerys' assertion of infertility, particularly when she admits that she never got an informed opinion about her condition from anyone except Mirri Maz Duur herself. As we all remember, in the season 7 finale, Daenerys revealed to Jon her belief of not being able to bear children. "I can't have children," Daenerys said. "Who told you that?" Jon asked. "The witch who murdered my husband," Daenerys replied. In case you don't remember, Mirri Maz Duur was the witch who killed Daenerys' unborn child and put Khal Drogo in a vegetative state. Mirri Maz Duur wanted to push Daenerys and Drogo for killing her people. Daenerys asked Mirri Maz Duur when Drogo would be as once he was again. "When the sun rises in the west and sets in the east," Duur said on the show. "When the seas go dry and the mountains blow in the wind like leaves." However, the show excluded a significant portion of the witch's prophecy. In the books, she also said, "When your womb quickens again and you bear a living child, then he will return and not before." That is the reason Daenerys believes she cannot bear children. Anyways, when Dany revealed her belief to Jon, he basically called her out on this assumption. "Has it occurred to you she might not have been a reliable source of information?" Jon says of Duur. Just as Jon pointed out, the witch who killed her husband and cursed her is not a reliable source of information as to her current health. Additionally, Jon Snow becoming a father was foreshadowed a few times as well, with the most prominent one being Jorah talking to Jon about Jon's future child. When Jon offered to give Longclaw back to House Mormont, Jorah refused as he brought shame on his family and therefore he has no longer the right to wield the weapon. More importantly, Jorah stated that the sword must remain with Jon as his father wanted and it has to pass to Jon's son once Jon dies, not to him nor anyone from House Mormont. When he insists that Jon keeps the sword, he basically regifted Longclaw with these words, "May it serve you well and your children after you." Long story short, Dany definitely is going to bear a child. Many times the show talks about Dany's infertile state, Dany's dragons as being her only children, the succession line issue and Jon passing Longclaw to his offspring. If Dany could never bear children again, the show would not return to this issue. Instead, it keeps returning to this topic in the same way it keeps returning to Jon's status as a bastard. So Dany is most likely getting pregnant, we're all expecting the Targaryen marriage, but having in mind that Jon will almost certainly find out about his true parentage almost at the same time Daenerys tells him that they're about to have a baby, quite a amount of fans also doubt that this marriage will actually take place. Well, here's a huge surprise for you, this marriage is actually happening a bit later in the season. I know you're still wondering how does Daenerys being pregnant change the fact that they are related, which of course it doesn't, and therefore why would they marry, but give me a few moments to explain it to you. Even though both of them will without a doubt refuse to even think about the marriage, whether it's political or out of love, in the beginning of the season upon learning that they are nephew and aunt, they'll have even stronger reasons to do so later in the season, and that reason is going to be Daenerys' pregnancy. Once they learn of their family ties, the other news will hit them. They already mentioned Dany's pregnancy with Jon's baby, and that exact news will make them change their mind and actually marry each other. And here's why. Jon has been a bastard son his entire life, and he most certainly will not allow his child to be born out of wedlock and live a life he has been living. Both in the books and on the show, Jon initially refuses to sleep with women because he's absolutely terrified that he might produce a bastard. In the 4th episode of the very first season, there was a small talk between Jon and Sam. On Sam's assumption that Jon had been with hundreds of girls so far, Jon answered with, "No, as a matter of fact, the same as you." Jon then goes on to describe his only chance with a girl. He says, "So I sat there in the brothel as Ross took off her clothes, but I couldn't do it, because all I could think was what if I got her pregnant and she had a child, another bastard named Snow. It's not a good life for a child." Knowing how hard it is to grow up like that, he had no problem with joining the Night's Watch and never fathering a child. Even when he falls in love with Ygritte, it's hard for him to get over this fear of intimacy that might lead to pregnancy. As I already said, just like on the show, Jon doesn't want to father a child in the books either. While having a conversation with his uncle Benjen about the Night's Watch, Jon said, "I will never father a bastard. Never." The fact that Jon himself is not actually a bastard but a legitimate son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark and true heir to the Iron Throne is highly ironic of course, but it doesn't change the way he grew up and it most definitely will not change his desire not to bring another bastard named Snow into the world. In conclusion, the final season will see the Targaryen marriage once Daenerys reveals her pregnancy to Jon and the only reason being their child. If this theory comes true, what color do you think would label this wedding? Don't forget that we've already had red and purple wedding. And as always, let me know your opinion about all of this in the comment section down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.